And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Sports Talk on the Max. It is the show that highlights and promotes everything sports on a professional, collegiate, and high school level. I'm Tony Ross, the Max 98.3 Sports Director, alongside my colleague and a 19-year professional writer from the Black and Golden Block, I should say. We want to welcome in Dougie Griffiths. And Dougie, good afternoon. How are you, my friend?
Boy, good afternoon, Tony. And summer is officially here, and it feels more like August than June, does it not?
No, does it not? I'll tell you, I'm already done with it. Bring on fall. Just bring on
how
fall.
Many of our listeners out there, including ourselves, are melting this week? I mean, it is
and for
really
those of you,
hot.
Yeah, for those of you who are watching on our YouTube channel, Max 98.3 stream ! You can see the fan in the back right there. Yeah, that's what this has come to, and we got an air conditioned building, so you kind of figure all that out. All right, my friend. As we do always, we let you start off with our sports topics for the day. What do we want to jump on?
Well, I wanted to tease our audience. We are working on having a very, very special guest next Friday. I don't want to get everyone's hopes up, but as soon as we know, believe me, watch for it on our social media on sportstothemax.net. Once we have it set in stone, we will announce it there. So just keep an eye out for that. And lots going on per usual as we speak. The Boston Celtics are having a parade to celebrate yet another NBA championship. I think they passed the Lakers this time now with they have so many. I can't count that high, Tony. It's a lot. And then us NHL fans, we thought the Stanley Cup Finals would be over a few days ago when Florida raced out to a 3-1 lead, but credit Edmonton. They've made a series of it, to say the least, or I guess it was 3-0, I should say. Right. And Edmonton's won back-to-back games. It goes back to Edmonton tonight. So, it'd be.
I got to admit, I have been watching that, and normally if the Blackhawks aren't in it, I'm not even paying attention. But I am this year because there's been a lot of great stories. I don't like the fact that Florida's back in, but I'm glad Edmonton's in. It's been a 30-plus year drought for Canada to get a Stanley Cup.
The whole nation of Canada is glad.
The whole nation of Canada, I kid you not.
Yes.
They are so nervous that it's kind of funny to watch them walk around with, little stiff-legged.
Yeah.
Because they want this Stanley Cup. The pressure.
The sky was falling when it was 3-0.
Yeah, it was. But the pressure that has come with this.
Oh, it's, yeah.
I don't know how Edmonton's been able to handle it. I honestly, God, don't. This is a big thing. I mean, this is even bigger than finding a new prime minister over there.
Yeah, to refresh our listeners' memories. This is a franchise. Of course, when Tony and I were high school age, I mean, they were a dynasty with Gretzky, Messier, Coffey and Company, Grant Fuhrer, and like Tony said, they've really had a lot of hard times. It's not a big market either by any means, and they, of course, in Canada, they live, breathe, sleep, eat hockey 24/7.
That's what they do.
But this is a franchise that's been so down, and as a result, they've had terrific draft picks. Well, time and again, those draft picks weren't translating into playoff hockey wins. Well, now at least they've gotten to the Stanley Cup Finals, and the way they're playing now, Tony, I wouldn't put it past them to win 2 in a row and win the Cup.
The first 10 minutes of tonight's game is going to be crucial.
Yeah.
Edmonton has to get out in front, and the Panthers need to score to simmer everything down, because that opening goal will be a deflator for the Oilers if they give it up. I mean, it will, and I say that just based on when you go on social media right now, there's people standing out in front of the Edmonton's
they
stadium
have that
right
plaza
now. I mean, it's already
packed, even during the game, too.
And it's hot up in Canada, too, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not just in the United States we're experiencing it. A little bit cooler than what it is here. But, I mean, point being, it's such a emotional thing happening right now. I just, for that reason alone, is where I'm kind of pulling for Edmonton to tie this series up, let alone meaning you get a game 7, which is going to be for all the marbles.
Yeah, and if you're like me, I love intense sporting events
Absolutely.
where the environments are just, loud, raucous and really deafening. And you're going to see that tonight. And you don't have to be a hockey fan. I mean, these guys lay it all on the line. My wife loves the Pittsburgh Penguins, so she's not a big Edmonton Oiler fan because she doesn't particularly care for Connor McDavid. But I'll tell you what,
Boy, that guy.
Edmonton, they offensively, I don't want to make that jump and the crazy jump to say they resemble the teams of Gretzky and Messier, but I'm telling you what, they can really skate, and when their offense gets going, they can put it in the back of the net. So you're right. Florida really needs a good start tonight, or it could snowball tonight and get away from them.
And even lose momentum between the years going back home.
Because they have some doubts, because I'm sure they thought the last game going back to Florida, they were going to clinch the cup, skate the cup around for their home fans. And now all of a sudden they're making that long track back to Alberta. And, again, they're tonight's game away from blowing a 3-zip lead and having this go back to game 7.
Normally I want to go out to eat on Fridays, but I might make the exception tonight just to watch this game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Tony.
Again, I don't care which either one is, but I got to admit, just for the historical side of things, Canada's due to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
It's the home of hockey.
Yep.
But that is so much pressure. But if you get a performance like they did by McDavid the other 2 nights ago,
well, I
don't know how you can beat him at home.
He was quiet in the first 3 games, and of course, you talk about pressure. The pressure was really mounting on him because all the Edmonton media members were just hammering him, and then all of a sudden the switch went off, as they say, the dam broke, and it looks like right now there's no stopping McDavid.
And if they win tonight, they might be Stanley Cup champions by the end of the weekend.
Do they have another 2 days off, or are they going to play the
I don't know
final?
if they're 2 days off or not.
Because they've had 2 days off every time they've traveled.
Well, yeah.
So I just
don't
wondered.
know. That's a good question.
I'll look that up.
I almost kind of hope it is a Monday because there's nothing that really goes on Monday night.
Right.
Except WWE stuff, and I don't watch that hardly at all anymore. So, but it's going to be a really good series. It's been a good series. And if you want to watch it just for intensive purposes, and I stress that word intense, ABC tonight at 8 p.m. is the puck drop. And it's going to be a phenomenal atmosphere in Edmonton.
Game 7 will be Monday.
Monday?
If needed.
There you go. Yeah, so I wanted to throw that in there. We, get a chance to talk a little bit about some hockey. It doesn't necessarily get to do justice. Even though I love the sport, I don't pay attention to much the Blackhawks are off. And now, back to the Blackhawks real quick. There's still rumblings about Patrick Kane coming back. Now that he's a free agent. That's still in the talk stage. But what's coming up in the NHL draft is actually a bigger issue for the Hawks. They're going to pick number 2. That's great.
Remember, they had the number 1 draft last year.
And got Connor.
Yep.
Now we got to figure out the right person to match him this year. And we're lucky to have a second pick because we're going to get the best of the best. They got that defenseman. I know you and I talked about it yesterday.
Played at Michigan State of Rush, and both the guys.
He's good, but I'm telling you, if we don't start finding people to play defense instead of being so offensive oriented, we're still going to get our butts kicked because we're still a young team. And that's too much talent to be losing the way they are. And I dare say, in their years along the professional side of things, they haven't experienced, those on a Blackhawk team, this many losses in their careers, young careers. Now that you would hope that would make you hungry, but at the same time, you got young kids who can't necessarily change from offense to being a defensive player. You'll be robbing them of their skill level for starters. So I still feel we're about a year away from being at least a contender, a playoff contender. But we got to get some defensemen, and we got to get the right defensemen to help us on defense. And Luke Richardson, and I am surprised that he is, well, you got to play with the cards you dealt with. And the Hawks got a bunch of offensive-oriented forwards and defensemen. We've weeded out a few of those defensemen going into this upcoming year, but we haven't replaced them yet, which I feel need to be more defensive-minded than they are offensive. We got the right kids, I think, to take care of the offensive side of things. Getting Connor Bedard a little bit of help would be great. I don't think we should get it in the draft. We should go for that number 2 guy from Michigan State.
Yeah, he's the defenseman Tony's referring to.
He knows how to score.
A Russian defenseman.
He can be a forward, but he's more offensive-minded than he is defensive-minded. But this kid is talented. So I don't think you can pass him up. However, you do got some trade players that you can get a good defenseman.
And always free agency, too.
And
I don't know where the Hawks stand in their salary cap situation, but I think
they're okay.
I agree.
So if the Hawks make those changes and at least have that mind, if we would have played just a quarter better on our defensive end, we wouldn't have had such a horrible record last year.
Yeah, they were.
We just gave up goals at horrible times because we had players out of position.
Very civ-like on D.
It was not even fun.
And it will be interesting to see if they go the defensive route, or like you were alluding to, there's also a winger from Russia that they're very high on.
That's true.
And
yes.
So the thought process might be, again, like Tony referred to, with Bedard, giving him some help through the draft, much like the Kane and Taves that turned into the dynamic duo. But again, there's a lot of ways to help Bedard other than the draft if the Hawks want to go defense. And just to let our listeners know, the NHL draft will be a week from tonight and a week from tomorrow. That's going to be held at the Sphere in Vegas. So that'll be a special venue, to say the least.
Yeah. And if we get that winger, and you're seriously thinking about bringing Patrick back, I think that'd be a hell of a power play that the Hawks will have. Now, where does Patrick fit in? I think he could be a front liner, a first line, with if and only if we get that winger. I think that would be great. But you got some flexibility too. You can drop Kaner down to the number 2 spot, and help out with everybody else that we got. Which again, our forwards are talented, but they're not. They're learning how to be finishers, And I think this year will be pretty important for a few of the ones that are going to be in the Hawk uniform this year.
I'm sure you're the same way, Tony. I've watched the Stanley Cup playoffs, and now you watch Florida and Edmonton, and having watched the Blackhawks this year, and you're just like, boy, we have a lot of holes to fill, and it seems like almost an impossible task. But again, if you're active in free agency, and again, stealing your words, if you make a good trade or two, put a good package together, then you draft well, things should turn around quickly there at the United Center.
All right, we come back. Rusty Nixon, our contributor to our Sports to the Max talk show, Sports Talk on the Max, I should say. And he's had a chance to talk with the new head coach of the Plymouth basketball program. And Mr. Miller will join Rusty in just a little bit.
Let's start off, I guess. Let's talk about you a little bit. Where were you born and raised?
All right, welcome back to Sports Talk on the Max. Our very own contributor to our show, Rusty Nixon, had a chance to sit down and talk with Coach Miller, who's the new head coach of the Plymouth basketball program. Here it is.
Let's start off, I guess. Let's talk about you a little bit. Where were you born and raised?
Yep. So born and raised, I'm about 35 minutes south of Plymouth. Went to North Miami High School, played there from, it'd be 2006, graduated in 2010. From there, I played at Grace College from 10 to 14. Played on some pretty good teams there. Made a run to the NAIA Final Four my junior year, and then lost in the National Christian College National Championship my senior year to Point Loma. They were a Division II school, but couldn't qualify for the NCAA Division II tournament because it was their first year.
Right.
So very, very talented team, lost by 2 to them. So yeah, a little bit about my playing career there. Had some good years in North Miami. Won the conference our last 3 years. Made it to a regional final against Deshaun Thomas and Lures and played them really well. They were just a little bit better than us.
Talk about growing up in North Miami. I mean, what did you play all sports? I mean, how was that?
Yeah, so a small 2A school, rural school. They're a 1A now. My brother's actually the athletic director there. I played basketball. Growing up, I played everything. And then as I got to my freshman year, I started being recruited pretty early because I was a 6'4" freshman that had played well. So I kind of stepped away from football. I just did basketball and track. I threw shot and discus. I made the regional every year except my freshman year for shot put and discus. A lot of that was my dad was really good at it, and he was a track coach. And then my brother, before being a high school AD, he was a track coach. He was actually a Division I track coach at Lipscomb in the throws for a while. So I had some pretty good coaches. And, I got to where I was 6'6", and I was 220 as a senior, so I was a pretty good sized guy and had some good coaching. So, yeah, basketball and track was what I did. I enjoyed both of them, but a little bit better basketball, and I enjoyed that one more.
What was it about basketball that made it different for you? I mean, obviously, it's caught your passion. I mean, what made that happen?
You know what? And I credit my dad a lot with this. I had so much fun. I had so much fun playing the game of basketball. Just being in the gym, the smell of popcorn, the band playing Indiana high school basketball. The tearaway pants when I was young, the warm ups. All of that stuff. And then I still do to this day. I love an empty gym. Going in, I was the first person at workouts this morning, and I was in Plymouth gym, and just the sound of the basketball from the middle, you hear it echo, and the hardwood off the bleachers, and there's just something that I love about that, and I don't think that will ever change.
Obviously, you got coaches in your background, in your DNA. I mean, when did you think coaching was going to be it? Was it just that when your playing days are over, you were like, I got to stay around it? I mean, what made you decide on coaching? Because believe me, I come from the same kind of a background. Coaching isn't for everybody.
Correct. No, it's actually really difficult. It's so funny. We say, especially in college, this is what we do for a living. We work 60 to 70 hours a week, and it's one of the only jobs where you work that many hours, and then people come from their 9-to-5 job and tell you what you should have done at your job.
Yeah.
It's really funny that way. But, actually it was in 8th grade. We had to do a presentation on what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I did a presentation on a college basketball coach. I wanted to be a college basketball coach at that young of an age. And after my last year at Grace, I had opportunities to continue playing professionally. And I met with some agencies after my senior year. And after I met with those agencies, I met with Coach Kessler, and he's like, look, I know what you want to do. I know you want to coach. He's like, if you want to go play now, because you can't do it in 10 years. Mm-hmm. But if you want to coach, he said, we are going to start a graduate assistant program, and I want you to be the first one. And so I was able to get my master's paid for. I was able to stay at the school. My now wife, she was younger than me, and so she was still at the school. And so it was a no-brainer for me to honestly start my coaching career right after I got done playing.
Tell me about your philosophy of basketball. I mean, everybody has a different approach. Everybody has a different, what they see as the best way to play. I mean, what is your approach to it?
Well, my coaching philosophy is simple. It's warm and demanding. Where I'm going to be warm enough where if a guy's having an issue with something, I want him to come to me. And the world teaches us as men that we're not supposed to share those kind of things. But I want to create that relationship with our guys. They're like, I'm struggling in this class. I need help. My girlfriend broke up with me. I got this going on at home. I just need some advice. So that's the warm side of it, where I want to build those genuine relationships. But the demanding piece is I'm going to hold them accountable to everything that we expect. In our program, you either coach or do you allow it. So I'm either coaching guys to do something correctly or I'm allowing them to do it wrong. And so we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to demand a lot out of them. So this morning was my first workout with the guys. And at the end of it, or actually probably not even at the end of it, I think they were a little shook when we were just being really, really, I don't want to say critical, but we were coaching them to a high level to do things that maybe seem really, really small and minuscule. But at the same time, if you travel 3 times throughout the year, that's potentially 12 points. It could be six points on offense, then you give them the ball, and it could be 6 points on defense. And so, our margin for error has to be really small for us to be as good as we want to be.
I'm sure before you took the job, nobody takes a job without looking at it from the outside a little bit, find out from other coaches and just looking at it. I mean, when you looked at Plymouth, what did you see?
To be honest with you, I took a lot of time. I took a lot longer than they wanted me to take making this decision. The hardest, I'll be honest, the hardest thing was stepping away from college basketball, a career that I've built for 10 years with my wife and I. And so talked to a lot of people that I trust, a lot of mentors, Coach Kessler even, and just the history of Plymouth, the proud community of the basketball program and Jack Edison. And, I had the opportunity to play against Randy Davis. He was a senior when I was a freshman, and we played him really well because we had a really good team. But I remember, obviously, everybody knows Scott Skiles, but just growing up 35 minutes south of there, hearing about that program when I was young in middle school and elementary school, I'm like, man, Plymouth is really good, all this stuff. And so to have an opportunity to take over a program like that and a community like that, it was a tough decision, but it was the right decision for my family.
Talk about that a little bit, too, because, the college game and the high school game are totally different. I don't remember, but I don't think you've had experience coaching high school, but you have in college. What's going to be that transition for you? What do you think is going to be the hurdle you'll have to get over?
You know what? It's funny. A lot of it's going to be the time. My wife and I were talking, there's more, rules in terms of moratorium weeks and stuff like that. And I'll be working fewer days. I think that's going to be the hardest thing for me. I think my wife and I figured out last year with recruiting and workouts and so on and so forth. I did something over 340 days. I worked over 340 days last year. And in season, you're 60 to 70 hours a week in college. You got workouts in the morning, and then you got practice in the afternoon, and then scouting reports, and then you might have 2-hour drive to go recruiting, and then 2 hours back. So my wife thinks I'm going to be bored. I don't think I will. But in terms of the game itself, it's a smaller court. It's going to be a little bit slower, not as big. At Bethel, we were going to be huge this year. We were going to have 7 or 8 guys 6'6" and over. And walking into Plymouth Gym right now, the Ellery kids, I think they listed him at 6'6", but we don't have anybody else that size. So, and then the other piece is obviously the shot clock. So got to reach out to some mentors, some coaches that I trust, and, talk about, managing the game and that sort of situation. But yeah, they're good.
I think people forget the amount of time. Obviously in college it's all basketball related what you're working on, but
correct.
The amount of time to recruit and all the things that go on there, that's hard on a family.
Oh yeah, Yep, it definitely is. And half the time, my wife says I would communicate better with recruits than I would with her at times, which is probably 100% true and valid. And so there were definitely days. I got a 2-year-old daughter that I would wake up before she's up, and I wouldn't get home until she's asleep. And so, those were some really, really long days, and I'm looking forward to being a part of my family a little bit more now.
Talk about the style of play you want to have. I mean, I assume it's going to depend on your personnel. That usually is
correct.
And you don't get to pick your personnel anymore either. They're given to you. Talk about that a little bit.
You know what? I mean, right now, this is my first workout with the team, and we're not going to do any offensive team concepts or implementation this summer, partially because I'm just getting in so late. So we did all team defensive stuff and individual development today. So I can talk a little bit defensively. Offensively, I need to continue getting to know the guys a little bit more. I do have an idea of what we want to do, but I don't want to say something and get locked into it.
Right.
But defensively, going to be predominantly man-to-man. It's going to be no middle, hard help, meaning when you're on the ball, chin high side, squared up, we're not going to allow baseline drives, but we're going to force the ball to the outer third of the court. And then obviously off the ball, it's going to be hard help outside of the paint. We'll rotate on the backside. Someone will take two. I won't get into the intricacies of it as much as I want to, but it'll be a hard-nosed man-to-man defense. Obviously, you got to mix things up in high school, and Indiana coaches are so good that we'll have to have some zones and some different looks and stuff like that. But we're predominantly going to be a man-to-man team.
And obviously you studied the Plymouth program a little bit. I mean, defense has been, that's Plymouth basketball. You're going to face that kind of a defense.
Yep, absolutely. That's something we've got to build on. And I went back and I've watched probably 9 or 10 games of them now. It was really, really close. There were some games that were really, really close to having some good defensive games. So for us, just to have that added accountability, to everything that we're doing, I'm excited to dive into that. I've always been a defensive guy ever since I've been a coach. As a player, I didn't guard anybody, but as a coach, you got to be able to guard.
Talk about your vision for the program. Obviously, you right now your vision is to get to know everybody. But as you're moving forward, what do you want to see as you progress?
You know what? We want to see growth in the individual on and off the court. We want to grow men. I think that one thing that this world is starting to lack a little bit is strong male leaders. At times, I think that men have become passive, and so that's one thing that we've talked about with our leaders is we want to reject passivity and lead strong, and we want to have a voice. And so we want to create that opportunity to grow those leaders. And we say it this way, we want to teach the game of basketball, but we want to coach people is what we want to do.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you for taking the time, man. I appreciate it. And just wanted to do something to let folks around here get to know you a little bit before the season starts. I'm sure you'll be around, and they'll be meeting you anyway.
Yep. No, I'm excited to get to meet everybody and get more involved in the community. And unfortunately, I won't be able to be there until early July consistently. I've got some stuff to finish up here at Bethel. Like we've got team camp today and tomorrow. We've got almost 70 teams on campus, so got to be involved with that, and then working guys out, finish up recruiting this month. So kind of feels like I'm doing 2 jobs at one, but I love every piece of it.
Well, I mean, you're in the gym. That's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Coach. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you. Take care.
You too. And, let's
Welcome back here to Sports Talk on the Max. A nice interview by Rusty with the new head coach of the Plymouth Pilgrims, Coach Miller. He's coming from a great basketball program, and I think that is going to be kind of invaluable, truth be told, because this Plymouth basketball program is trying to move forward, and you know, coaching changes are never easy to begin with, and so the quicker a new head coach can get into the program, especially with the youth, you know, that's a plus. That's a huge plus. And so I think Coach Miller knows he's going to have some work to cut out with the situation, but it sounds like he's ready to go. And I like him. You know, he's kind of old school a little bit.
Interesting, too, that they went outside the box, meaning they dove into the college ranks to get coach. So that'll be, like he said, a challenging transition. But I think he'll bring a lot to the table. And, of course, only time will tell if it's exactly what Plymouth has needed. And there's no doubt it's going to take some time. You know, you when you take over a program, you know, usually that's been struggling, because let's be honest, the Pilgrims have struggled on the hardwood for a while now. You're not going to change things overnight.
Well, and, you know, listen, you don't make this kind of decision lightly. And the fact that he understands there's history that he's getting ready to coach into, I mean, what a great opportunity to begin leaving your mark as a coach. What a challenge that is. And I really think that's going to be beneficial to the program, knowing the fact that they got a coach that understands the situation he's walking into. And just based on those aspects alone, you know, you don't coach with a Mike Lightfoot without hearing the stories that he has, the relationship he has with the Jack Edisons. You know, I mean, you heard it in the interview. I really think Coach Miller is setting himself up to change things real quick. And, yeah, a lot of it, yeah, it's about personnel. But when you're known as a coach that can get the best out of an average player, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And we've been blessed through the many years of having good coaches in our area to do just that.
And he'll get, having played Indiana high school basketball, he knows all that comes with it. And, you know, it's a pressure cooker. Let's make no bones about it. In the state of Indiana, not that they weren't, you know, Bethel didn't have its own pressures, and they had so much success and tradition there. But it's different when you come to Plymouth and high school basketball, where you have a whole community rallying around the hometown team.
Right.
And expectations are high. They always have been in this area, always should be high. And, of course, then you have now in the 21st century the parents and how do you handle the parents, and just a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts that goes into it. But, you know, again, it's early, but I think I like the move that Plymouth made.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's good things coming. All right, baseball action. Cubs playing an afternoon game. They're taking on the New York Mets. Mets 35-38. They're 17-15 on the road, so they've had their struggles. Cubs are 36-39, 21-16 at home, with Shota Imanaga taking the hill today. This guy's just been amazing.
Lights
7-1,
Yep.
1.89 ERA. His whip is at .99, which is impressive. He's thrown 76 innings of work, giving up 64 hits, striking out 78, only walking 11.
Yeah,
11. That's just getting it done. Now he's facing a veteran in Jose Quintana, 2-5 this year, 4.98 ERA. Quintana's been leaving a lot of his fastballs in the two-hittable range, meaning he's throwing right to the strength of the hitters. And so he's struck out 25 and struck out 50, I should say, walking 25. But his ERA is up there, 4.98. But that's always where Quintana has usually been. He's only had maybe a couple years where he's been in the twos, hardly in the ones. And so I think today could be a good day for the Cubs. I don't know if the wind's blowing out or not, but the Cubs have been able to pick up some wins here lately, especially in their last series.
Yeah, they needed that last series against the Giants to win that, and they were within an eyelash of sweeping that series. Once again, the bullpen was its downfall, almost the downfall in Wednesday's game when they led 6-1 going into the ninth, gave up a grand slam, and then the Giants had runners on second and third with 2 outs, but Cubs were able to induce a ground ball and get out of there, winning a series. It seems like forever since they won the series. I think the last time they won was the 2-game series against the White Sox, and so it was big. And believe it or not, Tony rattled off the Cubs record, 3 games under 500, but they're only 1 game out of a playoff spot.
Isn't that crazy?
It's just a cluster in the National League of, I guess, mediocrity. And still, they're ways behind the Brewers in the Central. I think 8.5 games.
8 games. Yeah.
So
7.5 behind Pittsburgh, 6.5 behind St. Louis, and then Milwaukee. Cincinnati right now is just a half a game behind the Cubs.
Yeah.
Cubs have a 2-game win streak. That's the longest winning streak going on right now, just in the Central standings.
And they've got to rattle off. I thought the start, which started last Friday, the start of that 9-game homestand was going to really make or break the Cubs in terms of, are they going to be sellers or are they going to be buyers? Well, I think they're 500 going into this weekend's series, so they really haven't given us, I don't think, a definitive answer. They did waive catcher Yan Gomes for what that's worth, but there aren't a lot of teams out there right now waving the right flag.
Right? Yeah.
So, even though the trade deadline, 5-6 weeks away, the end of July, it'll be interesting how these next couple weeks unfold. There's been a lot of speculation that one of the teams the Cubs are trying to strike a deal with is the team they play today, the Mets. So it will be interesting to see if they go after Pete, their first baseman, Pete the big hitter from the Mets.
Mayor Listenberger is in the house. Laura is with him as well. Are you guys hitting the streets?
We're going door to door today.
What are you doing?
You'll see the flyers. It's the advertisement for the Mayor's Summer of Music.
Oh, yeah. That's starting. We had Laura in talking about it. Now, we're ready to go. I don't know about anybody else. We're ready to go.
You have some flyers over there if you want to.
Yep. Stop by the station and pick up the music list. Yep.
Right after the 4th, right?
Yep, right after the 4th.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.
And here's the other thing. I still think we need to find somebody who's going to give up some short relief pitching. We need it. Neris is a horrible reliever.
Oh, yeah, he was.
I'll tell you why. Because you can just look at him and just tell that he does more garden work. His percentage of doing garden work on the mound, because it's never right for him when he takes the hill. He has a higher percentage of doing that than having a higher strike percentage.
Yeah, his concentration level on the batter leaves a lot to be desired.
And he acts like he's a tough guy. You know what? Pitch like a tough guy then. Control your fastballs. Especially. Got a good cutter. I mean, it goes down. Or is it the split finger? He's got one of the two there. I mean, that's a good wipeout pitch. But
like this club bullpen, it's been they walk guys, and then all of a sudden there's that big hit, and then it's no wonder why they blow leads late. I mean, you're asking for trouble when you walk people. And of course, the beginning of the year, you had Alzolay, who they thought was going to be the closer, like he was last year. Well, he had
what
rough
a fall
times
from grace he's been. Wow.
He hasn't pitched in a month, Tony, since they put him on the injured list.
Yeah.
And so Tony's exactly right. They got to go out and if they want to contend they've got to do something with that bullpen. I mean, because they're getting dynamite starting pitching. That has been the one constant of the Chicago Cubs in 2024. I mean, they are getting lights out quality starts from their starters. And they got good news this week in Wednesday's win. Kyle Hendricks, threw his best game in a long time. I think he gave up 1 run, struck out 6 or 8 in 6 innings, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's a sign of things to come for the 36-year-old. But they have to get a big bat, have to get a closer. And, they have a great farm system that unfortunately they're going to have to give up some of those top prospects.
And keep in mind, there's a couple of big names that are not in that middle relief. Jordan Wicks being one of them. Now, I'm high on that kid because he's got some really good pitching repertoire.
I think they put him on the injured list.
He's on a 15-day IL.
Keegan Thompson, I've always liked.
Now he's on paternity leave right now.
Yeah. And I think he when they called him back up from Iowa, he had a decent outing first time out, but then again, like Tony just said, he went on leave.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think this team has the making to be a competitive team. It's just been the middle relief and the relief that has been the problem. And
it's just infuriating. They've blown like 15 saves, I believe it is.
As soon as our starters get out, everybody puckers up.
And you're now at the point where, okay, Tony, they're going to blow the game.
You
3-1, 4-1, it doesn't matter.
But you notice Hendricks went as long as he could. I guarantee you will see Imanaga go a little bit longer.
Yeah. And you're starting to see Counsell because he's so shaky with the bullpen.
Someone has been in his ear.
He has no confidence in him, and rightfully so. And so you're starting to see the starters being stretched.
And I have no problem with that.
No, neither do I.
No problem with that whatsoever, at least not right now. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because we have got to get something between the ears consistent. The belief that when we have a nice 4-1, 3-1 lead, we don't have to worry about losing it, bringing in somebody else. At least get us 2 more innings to shorten up our middle relief appearances or distances. I feel this is the route we have to take right now. Now, does that hurt us down the stretch? I don't know. If we rattle off a few wins, get into a nice little winning streak, that changes the mentality of an entire team. And then maybe you hope the likes of a Thompson or whoever hits the mound after 6 innings or 7 innings that they're confident enough, feeling good enough, more relaxed, just getting on the mound and throwing the baseball smartly, and we're good. We're making a mountain of a molehill because we're losing games we're not supposed to be. And so now it just gets compounded. Now it gets rolled over to the offensive side of things. But listen, on the offensive side of things, the Cubs won 3-1 against the Mets, 4-2 against the Mets, and beat them 1-0. And then Mets beat the Cubs 7-6 in the opener. And then they got to still play each other 2 more times. But that's the series with the Mets. It's 2-2. But you won close games. So I just feel that right now we're still in a mental
I think their 2 top pitchers, like it was the case when the Cubs went to New York, are injured and have been on the IL.
Yeah, they're minus Montes de Oca and then Creek and then Allen. So
they're not the pitching staff you envision.
They're a little banged up.
Yeah, going into the year. The other thing I wish the Cubs, and they're too complacent for my like. And again, maybe this is just the day and age that has arrived in professional sports, and particularly Major League Baseball. But boy, just one time you'd like to maybe see a verbal exchange in the dugout, Tony, between 2 guys. Is there competitive fire and blood on that roster. I mean, I really sometimes watch, and I'm like, they mirror their manager.
Here's what's got to happen. Cody Bellinger needs to quit showing his frustration. When he misses a pitch, the bat gets flung or he slams the bat now, or he takes his helmet off way too early, halfway down the first base. Listen, you're a leader, dude. You've got to just get tougher, buddy. Put on the big boy pants and get tougher at the plate. Now, he ends up winding up. He's averaging almost a hit a game. But when he struggles, he gets in his head. That's always been his MO. And sometimes it doesn't end in a week. It doesn't end in a month. It goes a whole year. Look at his Dodger numbers. He only had what, 2 outstanding years as a Dodgers, which, again, I go back and I say this. I wasn't exactly sold on Bellinger simply because of his inconsistency. And when you're asking for a leader, to be a guy to be a leader, you look for him based on consistency. How he handles himself at the plate, how he handles himself on the field, how he handles himself in the dugout. What's he doing? And the dude's quiet. The dude's just quiet. So I don't know. Do we have that person to begin with?
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's almost like Swanson doesn't want to be.
I don't think this team has they have some guys they're paying really good money to, Swanson being one of them, but Swanson's never been the guy that's hit the cover off the baseball. And
he goes
who's the star, the real star? I mean, is there one?
And I better
in
not
the
hear
batting
one,
order.
And one of you out there who are Cub fans tell me Seiya Suzuki is.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about up and down.
Oh my
I mean,
Lord, that dude has found out how to be a head case, and that was never his MO when he played overseas. He has struggled to try to figure out where he needs to be consistent.
And to back up what Tony said real quick about Neris.
Sorry about that.
In his last 3 appearances, he's given up 8 runs.
Who's that?
Neris.
Neris, yeah.
And they also watch the teams you're always facing.
Just watch Neris.
And
if
playing.
That doesn't show you enough.
They have so many soft tossers in their bullpen. And it seems like all these other teams throw out guys that are 99, 100, 98. And, we might have 1 or 2, if that. I don't even know.
And for those of you who are saying that, Council needs to do this, listen, Council, because no one pays attention to Milwaukee, is why they win to begin with. And he's always had hard throwers in the bullpen.
Yeah,
Hader being one of them. They traded him. But
he was lights out. The game was over after 8 innings. And he had a great
got him now
setup, man, too.
Who's in first place now?
Milwaukee, again. I'm telling you, they're the present-day Cardinals. Like when we were growing up, every year, you'd be like, well, the Cardinals always had a star, 1 or 2, but every year they would win.
No, Pat Murphy's a really good coach.
Oh, yeah.
He's a really good coach.
Yep.
But Milwaukee hasn't had a big losing streak. And they're usually good for 1 week of being really bad. So it's coming. I'm anxious to see how Murphy's going to handle it.
But again, that's an organization. All they know is to win in the regular season.
Right.
When winning breeds winning. I do want to say, Tony, on Sunday will be a very special day. No, not because it's my birthday, but they are unveiling the Ryne Sandberg statue, and I'm sure all our listeners are well aware that Rhino is fighting cancer. But believe it or not, on Sunday it'll be 40 years to the day of the infamous Ryne Sandberg game where he hit 2 home runs off Bruce Sutter to tie the game, a game the Cubs went into extra innings and won. I mean, certainly one of the greatest Cub games of all time.
And it's on YouTube, but don't listen to the NBC call.
Bob Costas, remember, was on the call.
Yeah, I didn't like him. Listen to Harry's call. Yeah. He was him, Lou Boudreau,
I was going to say, probably
Vince Lloyd.
And Vince Lloyd.
Find that on YouTube. It's there. I've listened several times. that was just great. It's just a great call.
And remember, Bruce, back then, relievers would pitch 2 and 3 innings. And Suter, just like he was when he was with the Cubs, was virtually untouchable with that split finger pass.
You knew who the closer was back then.
Oh, yeah, right. I'm just saying they pitched more than 1 inning. Remember, Lee Smith would pitch 2 and 3 innings. They'd come in the 7th, and the door was shut. And Bruce Suter
remember Lee.
Suter was unbelievable. Remember,
they were ninth inning pitchers. Man.
Rhino hits the home run, and Suter comes back out in the 10th, and he hits again.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, and remember, Rhino would go on to win the MVP that year, and that season was really Rhino's coming out party. And of course, the Cubs went on to win the division. And as we all know, they'd lose the San Diego Padres. But
I can.
That game, the Cubs trailed 7-1, 9-3, and 11-9, and it was just a magical game. And so Rhino will join, the likes of Ernie Banks, Billy Williams, Fergie Jenkins, and of course Ron Santo and Harry Carey in amongst their statues, and it's just great for Rhino. Very deserving. Ernie Banks was to a generation of Cub fans, Mr. Cub. To my generation, at least, my favorite player was Ryne Sandberg, and it'll be a great moment for Rhino and Cubs Nation.
Yeah, it'll be a special time, that's for sure. White Sox, well, they're just the White Sox this year, and they got 20 wins going into their matchup tonight at Detroit. That's one place I want to go watch a ball game.
I've been there.
Comerica.
It's really neat.
Isn't it a neat ballpark? Yeah. It's amazing how they designed.
Yeah.
They got Comerica Park, and then just catty corner, almost it was in the same block. They got Little Caesars Arena.
Yep.
Where Detroit
and Ford Field is right down there.
Ford Field's just
they've done a great job in
I love what they've done.
Detroit.
I love what they've done.
Well,
anyways, they're getting the White Sox tonight. Tigers have been a little disappointing themselves, considering the talent they've had. They're 34-40. They're 3 games under 500 at home.
Worst start in franchise history for the White Sox.
For the White Sox, yeah. I'm talking Tigers.
Yeah.
If you're a betting man, statistics show you need to put money on Detroit because Chicago's only got 7 road wins. It's I don't mean to laugh, but it's kind of funny.
Bad, and I don't think it's getting any better.
Anytime your batting leader is Paul DeJong.
Yeah. The journeyman.
Yeah.
I think he was a Cub killer, wasn't he, when he was at the Cardinals?
Oh, yeah.
Seemed like.
Who isn't?
Right.
Who isn't against
Especially when they put on that Redbird jersey.
And one person that's really put in a strong effort this year is Andrew Vaughn. Bless that dude. He tries.
Yep.
He does. Sometimes he gets caught in the midst of...
They have some pitchers, too, that might be shipped out.
Well, I don't know if this one's going to get shipped out because he's pretty good, and that's Eddie Feedy.
Yeah.
Or Eric Feedy, I'm sorry. Yeah, Feedy's pitching tonight for the Southsiders. He's got a lot of potential.
I was going to say, they might get a good haul for him. Be interesting to see.
I would, maybe.
Yeah.
So, all right, we got to take a break, come back, wrap up the show. NBA draft just around the corner.
Next Wednesday and Thursday, and a lot of people in our area will be interested to see where Zach Edey goes. Of course, the two-time National College Player of the Year who led Purdue to the national championship game. Interestingly enough, Tony, he was one of 21 players invited or voted by NBA teams to attend the draft and be in the green room, but he turned that invitation down because he wants to watch the draft at Purdue with his coaches, family, and friends and teammates. So very unique. Not many players do that, but that's pretty much, that personifies Zach Edey, and of course was as dominant a college player as we've seen in a very, very long time. Now, how that translates to the NBA remains to be seen. When you and I were growing up, he'd be a lock for the number 1 overall pick, but the game has changed, and but even with that said, the improvements he has made, and I know he's 22 and they like to draft in the NBA on potential and youth, but it is really mind-blowing how much he has improved since he arrived at Purdue. And I think you saw it. He dominated UConn and Klingeman, and Klingon is projected as a top 5 pick. So it'll be like most players. You hope for Zach's case, it'll the team that drafts him is a good fit, because I really think he could have a niche in the NBA.
And real quickly, I just because I'm a Purdue guy and you are too, but the whole catching story, everybody's saying this and that, and what they're not saying is after Hatchins decided to make his decision to go to BYU, what happened after that?
Yeah, he called Matt actually the next day after asking Matt Painter, by the way. Purdue, as all college teams do, have sprinkle practice here and there throughout the course of the summer. They had a practice yesterday. Matt addressed the media, and Catchings came up, and he had talked to Painter and wanted to know specifically about his role. Didn't like what he heard, so wanted out of his national letter of intent. Painter said, okay. And the next day,
that was to be the end of it, right?
The next day, Catchings called and said, "Oh, I've changed my mind." And Matt basically said, "No, it's probably wise for all parties involved for you to move on.
I want someone who wants to be here."
Yeah, and he wants Purdue fits.
You're dang right.
And you're not going to see him change all of a sudden because Purdue got over that Final Four hurdle and all of a sudden recruit a bunch of 5 stars and try to hit the transfer portal like there's no tomorrow. That's not how he's built his program, and that's not how he's going to run it. And he doesn't. And he came out yesterday and said again for like the 100th time, I don't care what kids are ranked, because the guys that rank them, they're not coaches,
right?
And you can't argue with him. Look, Zach Edey was 400 and some. Braden Smith was, way low in the rankings, and many of the so-called recruiting gurus said he couldn't play Power 5 basketball. Well, as they say, proof's in the pudding, and those two guys have certainly worked out at Purdue.
Love it. That's
our coach.
That's right. I mean, that's a coach that gets it, and practice what he preaches. I want you to beat Purdue. You got to be all in Purdue.
You play for the name of the jersey.
You play exactly right. I'll help you get to where we need to be as a team.
No, you don't play for Tony Ross or Doug Griffiths.
You don't play for yourself. You play for the others. And this is the role I need you to play. Can you do it? If you can't, no problem. Good luck finding someplace else.
And he was, as he always is, very honest. He said, I'm not going to promise a guy that hasn't played 1 minute for us.
Right.
He's like, he didn't with Fletcher Lawyer. He didn't with Zach Edey. He didn't with Braden Smith. He's not about to do it. He doesn't care how many stars are by your name. You've got to earn your role.
Exactly right. So that was wonderful to read in a world of sports.
Especially in today's changing landscape of college basketball.
It ain't going to get any
where
easier.
Everything's promised.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's it for today's Sports Talk on the Max. Thank you for joining in. Join us next Friday at noon, where we love talking sports. And if you got any questions, or just email us at Doug at WKVI.com or Tony at WKVI.com, and we'll address those topics that you have in mind. So that's the simple email. Give us an opportunity. We'll be happy to talk about it. For Doug Griffiths, Tony Ross, have a wonderful weekend, everybody.